Are you living a fully expressed life, or is fear holding you back? Welcome to Born to Be All of Me, the podcast. I am your host, Amber Sousa. I believe we are all destined for a unique purpose, and in order to truly step into this purpose, we need information and transformation. And that is exactly what these conversations are all about. Are you ready to live the life you were born to live? I know I am. Welcome back to Born to Be All of Me, the podcast. I'm your host, Amber Sousa. Today's episode is one I know will resonate deeply with anyone who's ever faced a battle within their body, their past, or their identity and dared to rise anyway. I am joined by the incredible Angie Lickliter, an author, entrepreneur, and fierce advocate for holistic healing. After years of struggling with Crohn's disease, what she calls her gut monster, Angie not only healed herself from the inside out, but turned that healing into a calling. Her memoir, Finding Her, is more than a book. It's a mirror, a torch, and a roadmap for anyone navigating their own monsters. From chronic illness to food and alcohol to deeply embedded relational wounds, Angie shares how she moved from breakdown to breakthrough and how you can too. She's the creator of Gut Girl Coaching and the visionary behind the Right to Heal Project, a powerful space where women use journaling and self-expression as pathways back to themselves. I wanted to have Angie on the show, not only because of her story, but because of the courage to name the monsters, face them, and find the woman she was always meant to be. That's what we're diving into today. The truth, the pain, the process, and the freedom that follows. So without further ado, here is Angie Lickliter. Hi, Angie.
Hey.
Hi, we were just chatting a bit before I hit record, and we were talking about how we have a lot in common. And I love the title of your book, Finding Her.
Thank you.
I just feel like I think that's what we're all doing, is trying to find the part of ourself that is the truest part of ourself underneath all the layers of what life has gifted us, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
But in your book, you talk about like all the monsters that you had to journey through to uncover and find her. But I think that where I'd like to start is, in order to find her, you had to realize that you had lost her
Yeah.
somewhere along the way. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about, like, where do you think you lost her? And do you think, this is something I'm fascinated with, do you think that you came into this world as her and then life kind of pulled you away? Or do you feel like, you were born and you were born into the environments that we are all born into, and you immediately adapted in order to survive, and then you've been on this journey? I find it so interesting. But anyway, go ahead and start for me from where
I,
you'd like to start.
I love that question because as I do these podcast interviews, they make me kind of think of things totally different, depending on the question. And wow, that was just a can of worms that opened up there. Because I feel like most people, when they're born, you're just like this perfect little baby, and then the world starts forming you very, very quickly through our life experiences, how we were raised, the people that surround us, the people we choose, right or wrong. But in my case, I feel like my life was formed before when I was in utero. And the reason for this is that my biological father dropped my mom off at the abortion clinic.
Mm.
And she left. I believe that if she was allowed to have an abortion, I wouldn't be here. And I always tell people, my book, what I talk about with abortion is nothing political. I am not a political person. That's not what my stance is. It's just not. It's just part of my story, and it is what it is.
Right.
Um, she was made to leave. They didn't, he'd been there before. He dropped off another woman there before. So, I know, kind of crazy. So I believe that being unwanted by men started before I was even born. But I didn't realize it till way later in life after it was too late, like after all the stuff had happened.
Mm.
Um, but as I journeyed through my writing my book and doing some research, I found out that if it would have been 6 months later, my mom would have been able to have an abortion because the laws in Washington state changed later the year I was born.
Wow.
And if
That's
she would,
crazy.
isn't that crazy? I mean, that alone is just like, whoa. And
Like
this
you're
was,
supposed to be here.
oh, 100%. Like, I'm supposed to be here. And this was Washington State. And so my mom, if she was able to, figure out how to get to Canada at the age of 17 years old and not let my grandparents not find out, she may have chose that path, but she left. And thank goodness she had family, that was like, you know what, if things don't work out and you need somebody to adopt her, we'll take her, those things. So back to your question, for myself, I
Yeah.
believe that it was ingrained in me. The seed was planted well before I was born, that I was not wanted by my father. But I want to say before I go any farther, I have in the last 2 years kindled a relationship with him. And
Wow.
yeah, I met him like twice in my life. And as I gotten older, I thought, if I don't have a relationship with him, how am I going to feel about that? Like, how am I going to feel if he dies? Like, and this was a selfish thought. This was about me. Like, what is this going to do to me? And I was like, there is no reason to not have a relationship with him. I've got my stuff figured out. I'm doing this on my terms.
Mhm.
Let's do this. And I'm telling you what, I wish I'd have done it sooner. He's like one of my best friends. I love it. He's just like,
Really?
oh yeah, it's
Wow.
amazing. And I'm
Did
there's no
you know where he was this whole time and you just
um
didn't have a relationship with him or
well,
you?
I didn't know till I was 10 years old that I was adopted. My
Okay.
parents, my legal father adopted me when I was 7 months old. My mom
Okay.
got married and he adopted me at 7 months. Never clicked, never, you know, had a jive, never felt like I connected with him. And I was told at 10 years old that I was adopted. And I remember this, and I talk about this in my book, how I went to bed that night thinking that I didn't belong to anybody. But it was my mom's. My mom just didn't clarify things. When you're trying to tell a child something, you're just. So the next morning, she knew I was pretty distraught. We had another conversation, and I was so thankful because, I had some connections with my mom, but never
Mhm.
with my dad. And that same year, they got divorced. And I don't speak to him. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about him, but that's just um, but that whole journey through my life in the first chapter of my book, I talk about my men monsters. And I had girlfriends that said, "Oh, you should connect with your dad," and I had met him when I was 18, and then I saw him one other time, but I wasn't ready.
Mhm.
Like I didn't need him then. And not that I need him now, but I just was not, it wasn't the right time. I was raising children and things were happening in my life. And I had lots of friends growing up. They're like, you should meet him. Like they were telling me, you have daddy issues, like you're sleeping around, you're doing all this stuff, like you have daddy issues. And I didn't see it that way. But now I do definitely see it that way looking back. Um, so yeah, it's just a really cool relationship because there's no expectations, right? It's just getting to know each
That's
other.
amazing. Yeah.
And I struggled. I don't know how your relationship with your mom or dad was, but I struggled with my mom for well into my adulthood, not just the teenager stuff, but just being so different from her and
Mhm.
not understanding. Like she never understood me.
Mm.
Well, I'm just like my dad. Like
Wow.
scary. How could I have not been raised by him and be so much like him? The genetics are strong.
Interesting.
Um, so it's really fun to watch that happen. Like, everything is just it's just crazy.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. No, I actually, it's interesting because, so many people who have a, what you call a men monster, have stories of daddy issues or other things that happened, like the story that you just shared, that feel to me like, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense. But for me, I actually was raised by my mother and father who love each other and have been together since they were in high school. And I mean, my dad is amazing. And yet I ended up with the men monster. I have had uh, my share of experiences that have
I
been,
like that word, experiences. That's a good one.
yeah. So it's been almost, I feel, a little bit more confusing for me to make sense of it, um, because I haven't had like a specific, like, oh, my relationship with my dad was this, and so that's why blah blah blah. But
Right.
anyway, so when did you first have an experience where your daddy issues showed up and you felt like like looking back, that you weren't her? Because the her that you talk about is, I would imagine, your most authentic, your most empowered, your most aligned with who you were born to be, your most empowered. So that's who you've found now. But so tell me, like, how the opposite of that showed up in your life from an early age.
Well, from an early age, I was promiscuous.
Okay.
I was doing, as teenagers, we do, I'm not saying that I'm not the only one that was doing it, that's for sure, but I was at a pretty young age. I was looking for acceptance in lots of areas of my life. And it wasn't just from this father figure I didn't have. My mom, when she divorced my adopted father at 10, she didn't get married to my stepdad till I was almost 18. So she was a single mom raising us. So I didn't see a father figure in the home. The only
Mm-hmm.
father figure I knew was this guy from before, and he was very controlling, and I never really, like I said, jived with him. But I lost myself the first thing being in men. And I was always seeking the approval from my mom as well because I was so different from her. And it was just like she kept trying to put me in, and this is not blaming her at all because her and I are like best buds right now. Like we are just really good friends now. But she doesn't understand me because she's not like me and trying to shove me in this bottle that I don't fit in. And so if I don't fit into her bottle and I don't get accepted from her, then I've got to go seek acceptance from other people. And then is where it started. And it's, all the other monsters in my book as I got older, it was other things. So I felt like I lost myself at a pretty young age. And I really resonated with what you said in your opening podcast about, dimming your light for other people.
Yeah.
I'm high energy. I go, go, go. My mom is not like that. Like I was dimming my light for other people to be something else, right? And I didn't even know who I was. Like getting married at a young age was like 19 years old. And I remember my sister-in-law saying, "Well, what would you do if you didn't have kids or if you're married?" I'm like, I couldn't even tell you what I liked to do.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
No, because it was all based on other people and what they wanted me to do and how they wanted me to be.
Yeah, it's so interesting. When I was writing my book, um, I came across the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, and he talks so much about how, like, we have these basic needs: authenticity and attachment, which attachment is, the sense of belonging that you said that you felt like you never had.
Right.
And how, as small children, um, when we are faced with having to choose between being our authentic selves and feeling like we are safe and we belong, we will choose the safety and belonging, even if it means abandoning our authentic nature. And it's not a conscious choice that we make, it's just that's what we do. And I know so many of us women, like, just from, I mean, from witch trials times, where we are codependent, we are people pleasers, we adapt out of survival. And I was listening to a podcast interview recently with Dr. Laura Berman, and
Mm.
she was talking about how we all have what she calls our home frequency, which is the her. That's
Yeah.
what I feel like it is. But so many of us who are codependent, we never even establish a home frequency because we immediately attune to the frequency of our caretakers. you know, some of it is extreme, right? And some of it's just, we need to feel like we belong to them
Yeah.
and can connect with them. And like in your case, you said that you didn't really feel a strong connection or a resonance with your mom. And so I'm sure that you attuned to her frequency so that you felt like you belonged somewhere,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. And when I didn't, I felt that's when I was so down on myself. Like I couldn't
Yeah,
accept myself because I'm like, I'm trying to be somebody else that everybody else wants me to be, but I don't feel right in that space. And you just feel good. And so you just, she just keeps getting shoved down farther and farther, and she just disappears.
totally.
And, and I knew that. And mine, I know you had back problems, right? Like you feel like it manifested in your back.
Hmm.
Well, I, have Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about gut instinct and shoving everything down, like holy Toledo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's, very much correlated. And now that I look back and I know what I know, um, a lot of it all happened around stressful times, my gut issues. So, and that finding her is listening to that gut instinct that we have, that we shut up, we quiet, like talk about that in my book as I do reflections. It's like, and she's quieted again, and she's quieted again, like all of these times. And pretty soon she quits showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's been a theme in my life is the choice to feel like I don't belong or connect, um, or to be authentic, like, or to be her. And so I'm still like at the age of 50, I'm still trying to find that space where I am her
Yeah. And
and
I
I
don't know
don't
that it's
feel alone. It's
Yeah, and I don't know that it ever stops 100%. Like I don't,
yeah,
our journeys are all, they don't ever stop, right? As we keep going, but um, it's amazing the twists and turns that happen during those times. And um, I think as we get more aware to it, it's easier.
right.
But social media and social pressures, oh my goodness, just make that exponentially worse. I'm so glad I didn't have a cell phone when I was growing up because I would be a hot
Right.
mess, right?
Oh, I know. My kids are almost 11 and almost 13, and I'm like, my daughter will be 13 in October, and I am not looking forward to all dealing with, how technology shows up. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole other
That's
open
a whole other podcast.
that's a whole other podcast. But so tell me, was Crohn's disease the first major manifestation of you not being connected to her that you
Yeah,
were
I
aware
mean,
of?
yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was probably some things as I was younger. But I was going through my first divorce. I've been divorced twice as
Me too.
well. Yeah. Third time's the charm.
I'm
I,
hoping. I'm hoping
yeah.
for the third time is a chart. I'm waiting.
Well, I told my husband, we've been married almost 20 years. I told him when I
Goodness.
married him, like, well, you're either going to be with me forever or I'm going to end up killing you. So I'm not divorcing again. Anyway, I married my high school sweetheart, my kids' dad, and I knew that it was not right when I married him. It was just, you just know what you know, and but you shut her up and you just do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get married now. You're supposed to do this, right? But I always wanted to have kids young. I always wanted to have kids when I was young. I don't know why. It's just something I always wanted. But to the Crohn's disease thing, that started coming out right after I had my first daughter. We lived in North Carolina. He was in the military. I don't know if you remember Desert Storm.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with my daughter, who's now 35, during Desert Storm, and he was
Okay.
gone from 2 months pregnancy till she was like almost a month old.
Oh,
So
wow.
I believe that a lot of that stress, Crohn's disease is tied to so much stress and anxiety. That started then, and I was not eating healthy. I was not a healthy person then. That was way off my radar. Um, and after having her in that stressful time, I went on a no-fat diet.
Okay.
So fat, diets, stress, manifestations, things stuck inside. When I was about 27 years old, so it's been over 25 years that I've had Crohn's, I started having the symptoms. I'd gone on this no fat diet because that's what that doctors on Good Morning America said was healthy for you.
Right.
And I lost a bunch of weight really quickly. And I was eating all the no-fat food and all these packaged things, you know. And I always tell people, don't get me started on the food thing. That's a whole lineup of podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
And the no fat thing, because I remember that too, meant higher sugar. We would eat like non-fat, but like filled with sugar and also chemicals.
oh, the snack whales. Do you remember the snack whale cookies? I mean,
No, I
the,
but
the-
I remember the non-fat frozen yogurt that I had daily for, you
or
know,
the no-fat mayonnaise and the no-fat cheese with the
all of
no-fat
it.
tuna and the no-fat this. And I
Oh,
mean,
I'm with you.
it just
Yeah.
was everything. Yeah, I
Crazy.
think that yeah, it was crazy. But the symptoms started coming on not long, a couple years after that.
Okay.
And now that I know what I know, I strip my bowels of all the good healthy fats, and that's what helps absorb all your vitamins, nutrients. So I was damaging my body from the stress of having being pregnant and gaining 55 pounds when I was pregnant because the stress of having somebody overseas and turning to food, then the stress of not being in a happy marriage after having my second daughter, and that all just compiling to where I was diagnosed at 27 years old with Crohn's disease because I was in the bathroom all the time, the typical IBS, diarrhea, everything go right through you, um, all of that stuff. So and I was divorced shortly after I was diagnosed. So
Okay.
I think, all of that stress and it was a compilation. But internalizing all of the things growing up too, didn't help, any of that. She was buried way down in my bowels.
I know. Do you feel like, because I think about how our bodies, like we've been so conditioned to think that when we have something go wrong with our bodies, like a diagnosis like you're talking about, or with my back, that it's like such a bad thing and that our bodies are turning against us. But I know for me with my back, it was like her trying to get my attention. So it wasn't the punishment that I thought it was. It was more of like, how can we get her attention? Right. And so it's like a reconditioning, or a different way of a reframing of seeing how these messages that are coming through from our bodies are actually here to help us. And but we are, in especially in like Western medicine, it's like, let's just, take a pill or put a band-aid on it, rather than just really asking, what is this message? What is my body telling me? What is it trying to bring me into?
Yeah, and there was no doctors when I was diagnosed and for all the years
Yeah.
asking me what I even ate, let alone asking if I
Right.
had any emotional issues, if there was any mental health issues that went along with that. Not that I'm saying I felt like I had mental health issues, on life, having
Yeah.
kids and stuff like that. But if I really think back, when I really got sick with my Crohn's, in 2016, 17, somewhere in there, I really got sick with my Crohn's. I was really good for a long time. Um, I think back and I think, uh, and that's when I'm sure you can understand this. You go, why me? And then you go, oh, wait a minute. Why not me?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was her telling me, you are stronger than you think you are.
Mm.
You don't know what you're capable of, and I'm going to show you. I mean, and people would say, "Well, that's crazy, to put all that on your body." I mean, I was 110 pounds. I was told I had cancer. I didn't. I had a double bowel resection, a 5-hour surgery. I mean, lots of stuff.
Wow.
Sections of my bowels had to be removed. Um, but man, on the other side of all of that, getting through that, things in my life had just changed 100%. And that's when I started figuring out who I was.
Yeah. What was that moment for you? Because I know for me, when my back was really bad, someone introduced me to a book, and it was Healing Back Pain, The Mind Body Connection by Dr. John Sarno. And it was the first time that I ever even considered that there was a connection between what was happening with my body and any kind of emotional, mental, right, spiritual um, disconnect. And he talks about in the book how oftentimes this kind of chronic pain is a manifestation of uh, anxiety and anger that has been repressed. And I remember reading that and going, I'm not angry. I don't feel like I have anxiety. And yet I had two babies and was in a relationship with someone I am no longer in a relationship with for good reason. And you damn straight I had some repressed anger and anxiety that I didn't know about, you
Right.
know? So I once I like was became open to this concept, I was like, holy shit, this is a
Yeah.
whole new world and a whole new way of looking at why our bodies do the things that we do. When was that moment for you when you went, oh my God, this is not just my body failing me. This is actually something that's for
Well,
me.
and there's not one instance, there's lots,
Okay.
and it's different, I guess, different viewpoints and different ways to look at it and continually healing in this health journey. The first time, and this is when I was like, wait a minute, this is not just a disease I've been diagnosed with that defines me. Um, when I went on a vegan, raw vegan diet, and I met these ladies, and I was like, they are beautiful, they're healthy. And so that's when I dove into my disease. That's
Okay.
when I dove into health and fitness. That's when I left the medical community after years of being on biologics and all that stuff. I felt great. And I said, bye. I was 38 years old then. And I was good like for 8 years. And then the gut monster, that's what I call him, the gut monster came back. And that's when I started getting really sick. Well, if I look back, I think that stress, you talk about the stuff that's inside of you. I thought I was healthy, happy. My husband and I were enjoying life.
Mhm.
But if I look back, we were enjoying life in the wrong ways. We were not doing it in a healthy way. We drank a lot. And I'm not saying we were alcoholics, but, we were doing what a lot of people do, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the kids were leaving the house and we were doing things like that. And then my disease came back but I had owned a business at that time. I
Mhm.
was super stressed out about that. But to get to your point about like really like noticing when you start putting the dots together with the disease and the internal stuff was, um, I had this surgery and I didn't have an ostomy bag and I was supposed to, and I mean, I haven't seen a GI doctor since. It's been 7 years. Um, I realized then that I was put here for a message for people. Like I didn't quite know what it was. And then when I started writing
Mhm.
and journaling about my journey, that's when I realized that like there is something to this. There is something to that all this stuff that's happened in my life before and why I had this surgery. And it was like the surgery gave me this clean slate.
Mhm.
Like, we're taking out all the bad, we're gonna let you start over, and let's hope you do with what you're supposed to do with that, right? And I didn't for a while. Um, and then my husband and I quit drinking 3.5 years ago. Like we did a challenge, we got super healthy. And as I let go of those monsters, other monsters, talk about alcohol and food and the mirror, that as I started letting go of those things and not let them control my life, I started like realizing I love hiking. Oh, I like yoga. I like meditation. Like it was like it cleared up this space for these things that I could figure out who I was. And I kept finding her more and more as I was able to hear her because alcohol shuts that out, right? It numbs it. Um, the voices, the things we tell each other, we tell ourselves when we look in the mirror, that shuns that out. Um, and as I got healthier and healthier, I got healthier and healthier. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I was able to find her more and more. And the final finding her, and that was not the book title of my book. Like that was until I started actually writing it,
Mhm.
like from front, working with the publisher, it was totally going to be about my Crohn's disease.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
as I started writing, and I knew I had these other monsters, but I didn't really think of it that respect. And I knew she was in there and she'd been, I was seeing, hearing from her. But when I started really writing this book I just published, that is when all of that stuff was finally it was there, but it was like it was released. All of it was released. And I was able to kind of let go of the guilt around
Mhm.
it because I feel like you can I've been a gut health coach and coaching wellness stuff, and I can teach people how to eat better and help them. But if they don't get to that stuff deep down in there and release all that stuff, then it's going to fester, like we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
So I did a meditation. The final straw was a meditation right before I decided with the publisher. And it's all in my book, and I don't want to go into too much because it's kind of the ending of my book. But I had a meditation where I was accepted,
Mm.
deep, deep meditation. And I heard voices, and they're like, you are beautiful. And it just told me to go out into the world, and you are good with who you are. And I woke up from that, and it's changed my whole life. But if I wouldn't have done all these other things, before to get to this meditation, like for people to go to a meditation retreat, you got to do a lot of, you're not just going to go and never done. Usually people have to, find a
Yeah.
path to get there.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't listening or my ears weren't open, I would have never heard those voices. And that is kind of like was a catapult to my writing my book. And then as I wrote my book, these things just kept getting released, these monsters. Um,
Yeah.
and,
No, I know
and
we have that in common. That's how my book started was journals. I didn't start out thinking I was going to write a book. I was just journaling about everything that I was experiencing, and I owned a studio. I owned a fitness and, a fitness studio at the time when my back got really bad, and I was discovering all these things, and I was just like journaling about everything that I was learning and experiencing. And then at some point I was like, oh, I think this is going to be, I think this is supposed to be a book, but it didn't start out like that. But even now, and I know that you have that offering is, the right to heal, and you really support women in learning how to use the writing process in their healing journeys. And even now, it's like, even if there's no end game or purpose other than expressing and,
oh,
and processing on paper or on the computer, whatever it is, it's like it's hard to connect dots just in your mind, in your head. But when
yeah.
you start writing about your life experiences and you see patterns and you see dots that are connecting and you see, repetitions of the ways that you've abandoned her, it's like right there in your face. And it's one of the most cathartic experiences I've ever had in my entire life. And I know that you also feel that same way. We also have the thing in common that I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 5.5 years. And
Wow. Yay.
yeah, and that was something when was I was in my marriage, and it was very clear to me that I was using alcohol in a way that was not healthy. And it brought me a lot of shame, and I knew that I was using it as a coping strategy and a way to numb the dissonance in my life, and so, but I was afraid to give it up for so many reasons that we're all afraid to give it up, because our lifestyle is like very much revolved around it, right?
Yeah. And it's
um
simple to let go of that.
yeah, but I
It's,
think the same thing that happened to you, like the pain of the disconnect from her, became like louder and louder. And that became the priority for me. And I was willing to face all the fears of what my life would become if I were to let alcohol go. And I did. In February of 2020, I let it go. And I left my marriage in June of 2020, because that period of time, it was like it was enough for her to find her way back to,
yeah.
making choices that were from that authentic place.
Oh yeah. And I was February of 22.
Oh
Valentine's
yeah.
Day. Valentine's Day,
Yes.
the gift I give myself every year.
Oh.
Um, and uh, you know, the scariest thing for me with quitting drinking is I was afraid that my husband and I wouldn't stay married. I was his
Hmm.
bartender. We were friends for 12 years before we got married. Like our lives, I hate to say this, but our lives revolved around alcohol. I thought they revolved around all-inclusive trips to Mexico. But, as I wrote, I realized that, oh my gosh, like this was really all about the alcohol because it was
Hmm.
free, or it was included. Um, but my husband, he was the one that, we did the 75 hard challenge. I don't know if you're familiar with
I've
that.
not heard of it, but I'll have to look into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a 75-day challenge, and one of the things
Okay.
you can't drink alcohol. And I had pushed it off and I was like, right, like 75 days
That
without
sounds
alcohol.
like a long
I'm
time.
like, I don't even go 5 days without. I mean, we lived at a
Exactly.
resort, we lived on a
Yeah.
lake, like what? And my friend did it and she quit drinking, and I was like, I just watched her and she's like, I feel so good. And I'm like, really? I felt pretty good. And I'm like, no, I'm lying to myself because every morning I would wake up with those ruminating, I call them mind, I don't want to say the F word, but mind, you know what?
Yeah.
Every morning, it's like, and then by 4 o'clock, you just shove her in there. You're like,
Yeah.
no, shut up. It's time for happy hour. We're all going to go have fun. And that's what my
It's
friends
all
are
good.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
and so when my husband and I did that challenge, you have to read 10 pages of a nonfiction like self-help book. And we read this book called The Naked Mind by Annie Grace. It's a
Yep.
great
Heard of
book.
it. Uh-huh.
And I read it, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh, and this, and he's like, would you quit reading it to me? He's like, I want to read it myself. So
Okay.
he picks up the book, and I'm like, okay, cool. When we get done with this challenge, we're just going to really cut back on our drinking, all right? Like, this is going to be great. And he turned and looked at me and he goes, I don't think I'm going to pick up a drink when we get done with this challenge. And I was like, are you what? At first, I was like, okay, we're going to be getting divorced then because there's no way we can do this. And then it was like, oh no, we're doing this and we're going to do this together. And it was the best thing for our marriage. I mean, like, there is no way I could have done it. Like, there's no way he could keep drinking or I could. Like, there's just
Yeah.
not because our lives are so different.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say to if anybody's listening to this and they maybe have quit drinking recently or thought about drinking or like they're, a month or two in or whatever, it is hard. This is realistic. And it is hard to let go of that person. And it's not the alcohol, it's the person I was when I drank. I
Mm-hmm.
thought she was so fun. And she was. I mean, but it's like this new person now. And so
Yeah.
for the longest time, I would turn and look back and go, gosh, not that I was going to drink again, but just be sad. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, I'm not looking back anymore. It's taken time. And
Right.
now I'm not looking back and I'm just looking forward and I just get excited about what's ahead instead of worrying about what's behind, what I
Yeah.
did. And, there's a lot of shame around things, even when I was married to my second husband, that was a quick rebound. I mean, when I wrote my book, I apologized to my daughters and cried and said, I'm sorry, I left with him to go out at night or,
Mm-hmm.
paid attention to him and the drinking out, instead of paying attention to you when you were growing up. And so through writing and finding her, I didn't just find her, I found relationships stronger with my family too, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody around me. So it's, you don't, when I talk to people about writing, I'm like, who are you when you are eating bad food? Who are you when you are drinking? How do you show up for other people?
Yeah.
Like not just for yourself, but how are you showing up for other people? Because um, sometimes that's a question we just need to ask ourselves, you know?
It's this conversation I feel like is so valuable and important, and it comes up a lot for people that are on a journey of self-discovery and healing. Like the more that we grow and become this version of ourselves that feels more like self-love, um, it's scary because it changes the dynamics that we have with every single person in our life. And I know for me, I like stopped myself from really growing in certain areas, alcohol being one of them, because I was afraid of how it would change my life. And there are stories like yours that are so beautiful that like you and your husband got to make that change together. For me, that wasn't the case. Like I made that choice. I wanted that to be a choice that we made together. That was not what happened. And I had to face that, and I had to be willing to walk away from what was not in alignment with her,
Yeah.
because I had spent my entire life being a version of myself that was not her because I was afraid to be alone. And I
Right.
think
Oh
so,
gosh,
right? So many of us.
you nailed it on the head there, being
That's it.
alone.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so I've been single for 5 years. I'm not happy about it on many days, but I feel like the truth is that what I mentioned about Dr. Laura Berman and really finding that home frequency. I feel like, for 50 years of my life or 45 years of my life, I attuned to the frequency of the person that I was with. And so it's taking this period of time for me to even really discover what my home frequency is so that I don't abandon myself again, and I really have gotten to a place where I'd prefer to not be alone, but I'm also okay with who I am. And in the past, I chose connection, even if it wasn't authentic, over being alone and being authentic. And I'm at a place in my life right now where I'm choosing her, even if it means, being
Yeah.
alone or not feeling like I belong in certain places. Like, that is the gift in this moment, even in my darkest moments and my scariest moments and my loneliest moments. And I tell people this that I work with also, like, I will continue to choose her over and over and over again because the payoff of authenticity is bigger than inauthentic connections and relationships.
Oh, 100%. If I look back, and I'm so thankful for my marriage now. I mean, we have a wonderful relationship. But if I think back, I think the last time I've been alone, like I've never lived alone after high school. Like I've never, I was a single mom and I did a short time, but I had a roommate. Like I filled it with a roommate and stuff like that. But I mean, it was pretty soon man number two, it's all coming in. I mean, I think since I was, 14 years old, I started dating and I haven't really
Totally. Yeah.
been alone. So I think, talking about being alone, when you are alone, you have to figure out who you are because you can't attach yourself to somebody else's personality and what they like. And
Exactly.
we look back at who the people we've attached ourselves to, and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? But you didn't know any better because you didn't know what you like to do. So you had to attach yourself to somebody else and what they like to do. And
Yeah.
they're, you know, my mom and I joke, I've had like 30 jobs.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one of the monsters in my book too, is the money monster.
Oh, let's talk about that. Let's dive
Okay, yeah,
into
'cause that's
that
kind of
because
a different subject,
that's a
but
that's a big one. I think, at least in my world, like, I'd love
I
to hear about that for you and how that showed
well,
up for you.
that was a I've known that about me, but I didn't understand why or how until I actually wrote my book this year.
Okay.
As I My book is just a little different as far as it doesn't start at the beginning of my life and go all the way through. Every chapter begins at the beginning of my life, and I talk about each monster from like when I was little and what the
Okay.
things stories within there. So my grandparents were well off. We always thought they were well off. I don't know if they really were, but we always felt like they were when kids. But we moved to Kansas City from Washington. Um, we were in government subsidized housing,
Uh-huh.
and I had the special reduced lunch program. And, we didn't have all the things. Not that I ever felt poor or anything like that, but I just think I didn't want to ever have anybody look at me like that. Like that was just the area we were in townhomes. Um, and I wasn't made fun of. Bullying wasn't like a big, thing back then. But as I grew up, money was another attachment.
Okay.
It was this like money mindset of I've got to make this much money. I've got to have this many jobs. I've got to be working. And if I don't, I'm not successful. I'm not
Worthy.
worthy. I'm not worthy of my own self-love if I don't make XYZ dollar amounts. And
Yeah.
I went through a mindset course when I was doing my coaching, and um, through the work I did there was the worthy, like being worthy, like of accepting new things and nice stuff, and not always shopping at a thrift store and always having to have something used. I mean, I love thrift stores, and that's just my thing. But the mindset behind I deserve better than that. And my husband, he is the one that kind of showed me the way with that because he's like, well, you deserve that. I'm like, do I, in the back of your mind, like, do I really,
Right.
like,
Right.
uh,
Did
so
I did I earn that?
yeah,
Right?
did I
Am I
earn that?
worthy
And
of it
like,
because yeah.
well, and here's another thing, ingrained in me. My mom worked her buns off went to school, worked 60 hours a week, worked at the same job for 20 years, retired, and has been retired for years. That you do this, you go to school, you get a job. That is not my personality.
Me
And
neither.
so I was fighting with that person inside of me. I was shoving her down because she wanted to just go and do and try these things. And everybody's like, well, you need to get a job and you need to get retirement and you need to do this. And I'm like, but that's not, that doesn't, I don't want to, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I've been successful, I can say that about myself, in very unconventional ways.
Yeah.
And it took my husband telling me so and writing to figure those things out, like money matters, but it doesn't define me anymore.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that's always had really expensive things either, though. I could care less about that stuff.
Right.
But just figuring out how it played out in my life
Yeah.
and how it affected my life, um, I had to claim bankruptcy with the second husband.
Yeah.
He took everything from me. I had worked my butt off and he took everything. And it was the man and money monster working together and just wiped me out. So that was a tough lesson
Yeah.
to learn for sure.
Isn't it interesting as I'm listening to you talk and, just going back to the theme of finding her, and this is something that I've done is throughout our journeys, we have the ways that we relate to men, alcohol, money, mirror, like the things that you talk about. And we go through this process of asking ourselves, what is true? Like this has been what I've believed, but why? And is it what I really believe? Or is it just because that's, how the conditioning showed up? And so it's this real like reckoning with what is true for me, what feels true for me. And not what my mom or my dad or my sister or my husband or my ex-husband or my what is true for me, and like really being okay with that. And so it sounds like that's been a huge part of your process in finding her, is like getting to this place with money, like what is true for me, what is real, what is my priority, how does it make me feel, how much of it do I need, how much of it do I not need, um, where is my value and my worth separate from it. Like it's such a fascinating journey.
Well, I
Yeah.
find way more joy with less stuff, I can tell you that. Like I
Interesting.
find joy in getting rid of things like that and
Yeah.
minimizing and just and part of that finding her and then meeting my biological father and the journey through all of this. I am an outdoorsy girl. It's like I can't, we have a travel trailer. My husband and I love to travel, but when we travel, we stay in campgrounds. I want to stay in a campground. I want to be around real, authentic people. And I want to go hike out in nature and I want to be around animals. And it's just this discovery, I feel like this is like a new life. Like I'm discovering all of these things I never knew I liked because I never could find her before.
Yeah. I joke because it's so funny, like who I was in my first marriage and the kinds of activities that we did, like drastically different. And it's just because I was like, this is what we do. Like my
Yeah.
first husband was very outdoorsy. We went backpacking, we went hiking, we went camping, all the things. And I was like, this is what I like. I
Yeah.
don't. And then my second husband, uh, you couldn't pay him to camp. You could not pay him to camp. Like country club is where his dad, and like that's and so I would go visit back east and we'd go, I would wear the whole East Coast preppy outfit, like I was so after it's like, what do I even like? What clothes do I like to wear? What
Wait, who am I?
feels like something I would like to wear, not because I'm having to go to this function and this is what my husband, it's like this whole self-discovery. So yeah, I it turns out I'm way less social than I thought I was. I'm
Me
much more of an
too.
introvert than I ever thought I was. I thought I was an extrovert. Um, and while I am a like I grew up as an actress, so I and a dancer. I love to perform and entertain and be in that experience. But other than that, I'm very introverted.
Yeah,
So who
it's
knew?
funny you say that. If you talk to anybody that knew me from when I owned my Harley Davidson, and we would be at the biker bars, like I mean, we were out there going all the time. Go,
Yeah,
go, go, go. Every Friday, every Saturday, there's always a trip plan. I was the party planner. Like, what are we doing this weekend? What are we doing Friday? And I remember people going, well, I don't know what we're doing. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing this weekend? We got to plan this. I was just feeling these voids. Because as soon as you get quiet,
Yeah.
then it's like, then you got to figure out who you are. And it's like, if we can just fill life with all these things and go, go, go,
Right.
go, go. And believe me, I am still high energy, go, go, go. My schedule's filled, but it's filled with like pickleball and yoga and Pilates class. And
Yeah.
then at night it's filled with like dinner at home. I hate eating out. We used to eat out all the time
Yep.
because it's okay to drink when you eat out. Like that's
Yep.
what you do, right? So now it's like, I don't want to go out to eat. I just stay home. And then we go for a walk, and then I'm like, I'm ready to, it's bra off 30, and I'm ready to watch my shows for a couple hours and get to bed by 9 o'clock,
Yeah,
before.
totally.
Yeah, so it's, it is really it's really fun, and it's really mind blowing to get to know who you really are. It's just a really cool experience. It can be kind of scary sometimes, and there's days that I'm like, okay, this is not normal for me. Why am I okay with just being home? And I do still have, there's always still struggles of like, just be okay with being here, like
Yeah,
just
totally.
being where you're at and the space you're at. And, but in the past, I would, what's the word I want to use? I would just deny myself the high energy, and be like, okay, you need to, no, I like to be active. But it doesn't, now I do it in a healthy way.
It's not an escape, it's
Right.
authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's who I want to be.
Yeah.
And we moved to a golf course community 2.5 years ago, and I was like, oh, I used to play golf with that second husband because he was a golf pro, and my husband golfs, and I'm like, I need to golf with these ladies. And not that I don't love the ladies are great, but I don't love golf. And I'm like, why am I buying these golf skirts and all this golf stuff? And
Right.
I'm trying to be who these other people are in this community, and I'm like, maybe I will someday, but I'd rather not. And so
Yeah.
you- I don't think you ever quit learning about yourself. Once you're open to it and you found her, you
Yeah.
just keep finding more of her.
I think this is really fascinating. And just for anybody who's listening, I think it's so important for, to give ourselves permission to evolve
Yeah.
because, like, I know when I left my marriage to the father of my children, um, he literally felt like I had duped him or lied to him about who I was, like, because I changed so much. And I was like, I didn't intentionally lie to you. I lied to myself because I wanted to be in a partnership. And, I think like one thing I'm very clear about is that the next relationship that I am in, like, there has to be room for us to evolve and change. Like, I there have been so many different iterations and versions of me, and I want permission and freedom to continue to evolve and change, and that has to be okay. Like, there has to be space for that. So that's really important. And I think, for anybody who's listening, if you've had that experience, like, we've been so conditioned, like you said with your mom, like, she had the same job for this long, and, like, we've been conditioned to think like staying the same is success. Like, the longer you're at a job, the more successful you are, or the longer you're in a relationship, the more successful you are. Like, what about if you're happy in either of those scenarios? Like, and so we do evolve. That is our natural state, I think, is to, as we evolve, and especially as we discover who we really are, we're going to like different things. We're going to be attracted to different experiences and different people.
Right. And you may do something for a while, and then if you go change it, experience something else or feel a different way about it, that's okay. You don't
Yeah.
being s- I think I look around and I see so many people stuck in the daily grind of their lives. Or and some people like that, and that's great. But I think at the end of the day, if you're not experiencing something new and changing and evolving, that you just stagnate. It's just kind of like the whole wellness industry right now, and they talk about walking and just moving and just movement. I've been in the health and fitness industry like yourself, and it wasn't like that before. That was not, now it's walking. Sitting is the new smoking, and I love that that's the way it's going because people are stagnant. And I'm not just talking about sitting on the couch. I'm just talking about their lives in general. They just sit. It's like they're just sitting and waiting for life to go by. And it's
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, why? I don't know why you would want to do that. I don't know. It's just, yeah. evolving always.
Evolving always. And the truth is that there are some people that don't feel the same call to evolve as
Right.
much as people like you and I. Like, not everybody feels like they need to write a book in this lifetime,
Right.
and
Oh
and
yeah.
that's okay. And
Yes.
sometimes I wish I was more content with just you know, like being
But then you're
consistently.
denying who you are though.
And
And
that's
that's
true.
yeah.
Exactly. It's like
I mean,
this is
I
me.
agree with you. It's
This
yeah,
is
you just
me.
kind of go, God, I wish I was one of those people that's like good to stay home and just do nothing. But I am okay with staying home. If it's
Yeah.
a rainy day and it's nasty out, man, I'm in my sweatpants. I'm drinking coffee all day, like I'm watching shows.
Yeah.
But if it's sunny out, I want to be outside because that's my personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. We tried it. We still, I mean, like you said, it's always evolving. We're always trying to figure things out. And some of us are deeper thinkers with figuring ourselves out. And to your point about writing a book, I have felt like this is a calling of mine forever, for a long time. There's just been this nudge.
Hmm.
And I think everybody has a calling and it just looks like something totally different. And a lot of people, sadly enough, a lot of people don't realize, that they've probably had one and maybe they've achieved it or maybe not. I don't know. But I feel like we all have a place here on this planet.
Hmm.
Um, in some respects. And, you know, I've had people ask me about my book and they're like, and I'm like, I didn't write a book to make money. I
Hmm.
made it to reach people and to help people and make them feel seen and heard because I felt very unheard. She felt very unheard, and it took a lot to find her. And some people find themselves, I'm jealous of those young girls that are in their 20s and they are traveling and they're just doing their own thing. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I would have done that in my
I
20s.
know.
Like
Me
I just
too.
like you go, girl, just do
I know.
you.
I know. I tell my kids that. I'm like, oh, just explore and adventure and live your life and do what you love. Do
Yeah.
what you love.
And if
Um,
you can find a job within what you love,
yeah.
like find a career or you can make some money doing something you love,
Yeah.
then man, your life is so much better.
Yeah.
And that whole adage of I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago and somebody asked, I think it was Caitlin's podcast. She said, "What would you tell your younger self?"
Yeah.
And you're going to so resonate this. I would tell my younger self, be alone.
Hmm.
Be alone for a long time. Find yourself and get situated before you get married and have kids and all the things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Find out who you are and what's important to you. I mean, the questions that I never asked myself about what was important to me in partnership blows my mind. Like nobody ever, I feel like that should be something that everybody should be like, these are the questions to ask yourself when finding a
Like
partner.
home ec class. They should be asking those.
There
It'd be in
should
high
be this.
school.
Like, I
Yeah.
was like, you like me? Okay. I
Yeah.
like you enough. Let's do this. Like,
Yeah. Right.
I don't
Exactly.
want to be alone.
Yep. Don't want to be
Oh my
alone.
gosh. Yeah.
That's,
I know we have to
yeah.
wrap things up, but I want to touch upon your mirror monster because, especially as women, my God, like we just tear ourselves to shreds.
Yeah.
Are you at a place where you can look at yourself in the mirror and really, really love who you see?
Yes. Now, there's days I don't, but what I have learned through that is when I'm not taking care of myself,
Yes.
I'm eating bad,
Yes.
like in my mind, eating sugar, like eating a
Me
lot of
too.
sugar,
Yep.
not getting the movement in my day. I'm allowing God, I just got the chills. I'm allowing those things that used to consume my life to start to take over and they start to shun her. And that's when I don't like what I see. It's not my body shape or what size I am, but if I'm not taking care of myself and
Yep.
doing those things that I like, um, or the foods that I know nourish my body and make me feel good,
Yep.
that's when I don't like what I look in the mirror. But I think, to say that somebody's 100% happy with who they are and they look in the mirror, it'd be kind of hard to, you know what I mean? You're like, I'm having a bad hair day. I wish my wrinkles would go away,
Yep.
things like that. But yeah, I mean, I want to feel good. It does, I don't, if I didn't walk by a mirror, it's just a matter of how I feel, and I want to feel good. And if I don't feel good, I don't love that. And I think a lot of that for me ties back to when I had my Crohn's disease and I was really sick. There's always this little thing in the back going, "Oh God, are you sick? Like, what's wrong?" Because like I haven't had anything happen in 8 years. I've been med free and no doctors. And that fear that's a real fear still back there. So that's tied to a lot of the how do you feel? Are you doing all the right things? But the mirror monster plays into the food. It plays into all of the other things too, and your
Yeah.
reflection that you're
Which
saying.
is, so this is interesting, an interesting thing to take a look at, because when you think about looking in the mirror, I think most people think of the superficial aesthetic reflection and how they feel about that reflection. And when you are abandoning yourself through behaviors like eating poorly or drinking alcohol when you know it doesn't make you feel good, or even just abandoning yourself because you're not being authentically who you truly are. When you look in the mirror, yes, you see the physical, but also what you see as a reflection of someone who's not loving themselves. And that's really hard to face. And so I know for me, even when, I'm 50, it happens, right? Like the boobs are not where I'd like them to be and whatever other things. But I look in my eyes and I see a woman, it makes me want to cry because it's not an easy journey. But I see a woman that makes tough decisions over and over and over again in honor of herself. And I make tons of mistakes and I do the wrong thing. Like things don't work out the way I think they should or want them to. But I honor myself and I love myself. And that makes looking in the mirror something that feels like good. Like I'm looking into my soul. Like I got you. Like I won't abandon you again.
Yeah, my
I got
girlfriend
you.
and we went to Colorado and we ate like a lot of sugar and stuff because we were
Mm,
on vacation, and there's always that fine line of being on vacation and
I
yeah,
know.
that feeling when you get back
Oh
home and you're just like, oh my God, I feel like shit. Like, what did
yeah.
I do to myself? And so we're like best buds as far as keeping each other accountable. Like, okay, when we get home, we got to make sure we just get rid of that stuff that makes us feel like crap. And she was like, so how you doing with like getting back on track? And she's like, oh my God, I'm epically failing. And I'm like, well, you're not failing because it's not really, you don't have to do it. But she said, but I've never given up on myself. And I said, you know what? That's exactly right. Like, you don't ever give up on yourself as far as trying to. I feel like you always should be improving yourself and always making yourself better. I'm not talking about physical attributes. I'm talking about mental. I'm just talking about, I am just one of those people that always has got to be leveling up. I like to level up in life
Yeah.
because at my age, at 55, my husband's 11 years older than I am.
Hmm.
For us, it's the longevity game.
Mm,
What
yeah.
can we do in our daily life to keep us alive longer and be together longer
Yeah.
and be there for our kids and our grandkids? Like I do what I do so I can go do things with my grandson. I can play, baseball, football. I can take him RVing. I can, those are the things
You're
that
like the
matter.
hot grandma too. Look at you.
But, it's
Yeah.
just like doing those things for longevity. So I think as we evolve, the reasons we look in the mirror, maybe not like what we see or how we feel about things, they change. And for me right now, I don't care what I look like. If my blood work is good and I'm going to live a long time, that's what makes me happy.
Yeah. And that shows. Like I think that shines out. Like people feel that. People feel that resonance and that energy when you're
Well,
honoring
that's
yourself.
talking about shaming yourself and things, when people say, oh, you work out just because you're vain or something. And I'm like, no, because it releases good chemicals in my body and I feel better. And if I have more muscles, then guess what? I'm going to stand up straighter. I'm going
Mm,
to be able to bend over without falling over. I'm going to be able to tie my shoes when I'm 80.
yeah.
That's what everything is about for me.
Yeah. And like for me, I mean, I dance, I teach dance fitness 5 days a week right now. I move my body almost every single day. And for me, it's so different than it used to be when I was younger. It was about like being physically fit. And I have been in a place where I look physically fit, but I'm like dying inside. So for
Mhm.
me now, I look physically fit, but more importantly than that, I feel good. I feel good moving my body. I feel good in my body, being in my body and moving in a way that feels really good. And, they talk about like emotion being energy in motion. And I feel like, every day it's an opportunity to move that energy that needs to be moved. And if you're not
Absolutely.
moving, it just piles up, piles up, piles up. And the daily stresses of every day like start to accumulate. And that's when you end up with things like Crohn's disease and other, other issues. So you got
Oh,
to keep moving.
gotta keep moving.
Got to
That's
keep
right.
moving. All right. Well, Angie, where can people find you and where can
Okay,
they
well,
find your book?
you can find my book on Amazon,
Okay.
Finding Her. My last name is a little strange, but I'll spell it for you. Angie Lickliter, Lickliter, AngieLickliter.com. And my information about where to get my book, book signings, upcoming events, the coaching I offer, and just a little bit about me is on my website. And that's my handles on all my social medias as well. Angie
I
Lickliter.
love it. I love it. And the current offerings that you have right now for people that are interested. So you have Gut Girl coaching. So
Well,
anybody,
Gutful coaching was my coaching, and I kind of retired from all of that.
okay, okay,
But coming back after writing, it's just my name, but I am a certified holistic gut health coach.
okay, perfect.
And I'm actually a certified cannabis coach. And I know that's a whole nother story, but it's part of my book, CBD changed my course of my Crohn's disease surgery. So there's a whole
Wow. Okay.
story behind the CBD. And so I actually coach people if they're looking, for CBD or herbal remedies, things like that. That course, I do that type of coaching too, and the writing. So I have many levels to my coaching. It just really depends on the client, what they're looking for, and what I can help them with. So,
Okay. Well, I will put all of that in the show notes. And for anyone listening, finding her or finding him, this is the journey that we are all on. And it's bumpy and it's messy and it's not perfect, but it is the most rewarding and fulfilling journey that I've experienced is being true to who I am and knowing what that even means,
yeah.
right?
Well,
All
thank you for
right.
having me
Thank
today.
you, friends, for joining us. Until next time, we will keep discovering who we are and being true to who we are and looking in the mirror and loving ourselves. Thank you. Wow. What a powerful conversation. Angie reminded us that the monsters we face, whether they show up in our health, our habits, or our history, aren't here to destroy us. They're here to reveal us, to call us home. If her story resonated with you, I encourage you to check out her book, Finding Her, and download her free journaling guide at angielicklighter.com. Whether you're on a healing journey of your own or supporting someone else through theirs, her words are a powerful companion. As always, thank you for being here, for listening with your whole heart, and for doing the courageous work of becoming all of you. If this episode moved you, please take a moment to share it, leave a review, or message me directly. I love hearing what touched you most. Until next time, keep dancing through the dark, keep listening to your body, and keep coming home to who you truly are.